All right. I'll just make sure we are live here real quick. Do. I don't see myself on all the channels. One sec. All right. I think we are. Let's see. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Well, hello, friends. Internet world, internet fam, Satori Prime community. Don't do these Facebook Lives often, to be honest, and certainly not on the topic at hand. Uh, Honestly, I'm feeling a little bit nervous for some reason, and it's not because of the nature of the topic, but mostly because I don't typically have anything prepared when I share anything online. I'm always a channeling stream of consciousness type of person, and I let my large amount of personal experience in terms of personal development, healing, energetic work, consciousness, shamanic work, mystery schools speak through me. And I, for whatever reason, felt compelled to want to share a little bit about a topic that I know few people know much of and maybe have a lot of interest in or curiosity about. And that is on the area of psychedelics, specifically in taking place in shamanic healing circles, which I have been participating in for right around, I think right now, like maybe even today, is my 11th year anniversary of first time I sat with plant medicines like ayahuasca inside of a traditional setting, specifically under the guise of doing healing work. And over the last 11 years, I've done well north of 100 of these kind of ceremonies, which, if anybody has done these kind of ceremonies, in its own right is borderline an insane number. And I've also taken place in many other shamanic ceremonies with even stronger psychedelics like iboga. I've done a fair bit of combo, smoked DMT, and have experience with psychedelics really going back to as far back as 15 years old. And at that time in my life, just again, if that seems insane to you, which to some degree it does to me also, I was dealing with a great deal of depression and substances, which I've never abused in any particular way in my life. Have used them generously at times in my life for sure. Was a way out of the panic room, so to speak. It was a shift in perception and allowed for me to, at least at that time, escape from a reality that internally was extremely painful and detrimental to my life. Had very little or no connection with God whatsoever, and began to find myself at least getting curious and investigating other parts of our consciousness, tasting love and even ecstasy in ways that were unknown to me at that time in my life. And in many ways, I know maybe opposite to most drug use that you might hear, and I certainly don't consider these drugs. I really do consider them medicines, especially where I am in my life today. They potentially saved my life in many ways. So if you're watching this, I can see any comments that you put in here, even though it's on a variety of channels. I can see you guys chatting. So if you have questions, clarifications, things you want me to talk about here, I'm happy to talk to you about. But given the amount of experience I have at this point, like I said, over 100 of these ceremonies taken place over the last 11 years, probably closer to like 150 or 250. 150 or 200 ceremonies, if you include a variety of medicines that I've been using, learning from over the last 11 plus years or more. I do have a large amount of knowledge that I've ascertained from these experiences and quite a bit to share. On top of that, I've also brought people to this work potentially by the hundreds at this point in time. And so I've seen the power of this work in people's lives. And I'm fresh off of a trip to Colombia, which is primarily where I do this work now. And so for the last 11 years, I've been working with a family, not really a retreat center, so to speak, It's more their land and buildings that they built on there. And I work primarily with a single family these days um, that has indigenous roots to this work and is held by female shamans, which is pretty unusual. And also female shamans who have been drinking medicine since they were 7 years old or even younger, and today have over 60 plus years of shamanic experience. And so I truly believe this work needs to be held in a very sacred container. I'm both excited and a little bit disheartened by the Western modalities of medicine journeys, even with ketamine, which I think is an amazing tool, and lots of other tools like psychedelics. I'm a little bit saddened that those things are done in clinical settings and are not held by the indigenous lineages who have been working with these plant medicines for thousands of years in some cases. And so to me, to sit in a 10 by 10 room that's white, I'm sure it's done with a little bit more heart than that, hopefully. But in a clinical setting, does remove some of the attributes of what makes this kind of work so special, because a lot of this work is a reconnecting with ourselves through nature, learning through nature. And so when you remove people who are aware of energy, and most clinicians are completely devoid of energy, they think of this as a psychological treatment, where I know absolutely for a fact this is psychosomatic in nature, spiritual in nature, multidimensional in nature, and that the healing doesn't just happen in the mind, it happens across space and time, and both in the vertical and the horizontal, meaning both in our mind, but also in our spiritual sense. And so the healing can be in the soul, ancestral, a lot of different dimensions can be added on here. And so I hope that as more and more of this work is introduced to the Western world and the Western mind, that those of us who have sat in and held the containers and understand the value of what the indigenous have brought through, that this work is actually continuously leaned on more in that direction. And the indigenous perspective has been around for a long time. Their gifts are borderline magical, but then again, so is science in many ways. And science is the contemporary way that we talk about things that are magical. If you don't think science is magical yet, just take a look at quantum physics and it'll blow your freaking socks off. So, a lot of questions people get is, what is the experience like? That's hard to put into a few words. It's hard to put even into a lot of words. You can go do as much research as you want on plant medicines like ayahuasca. I guarantee you, whatever you read upon it, you can throw out immediately. It will not be your experience and will not take the edge off of the amount of uncertainty and fear that you will ultimately experience before heading into a plant medicine ceremony of any kind. I personally have learned to have a great deal of courage. A great deal of reverence for this work, and I have a great deal of admiration for the people who are willing to sit in these ceremonies because of the amount of courage that is required on a person's part to sort of stand at the gate of the unknown, or if you want to think of it like jumping out of an airplane and not ever being sure if the parachute's going to open for you. And so just imagine what kind of courage it takes to dive into that. Every ceremony I've ever sat in, the same nerves arise. It's never gotten more comfortable. And in many ways is experiencing, what people might describe as an ego death or facing your own death, sometimes thousands of times per session. And that certainly is not a comfortable idea, but one that can reveal and elucidate an immense amount of healing and light in your life. Because what is an ego death? Well, it simply means that there's a part of us who is committed to or addicted to a certain version of reality. And so it does not allow for any other form of reality to enter our life. And so doing so, it kind of holds things at arm's bay or has a very narrow point of view, and everything else becomes a threat to that aspect of ourselves. When we're experiencing an ego death, that aspect of ourselves literally has to disappear or reintegrate, if you want to think of it that way, in a more holistic way, reintegrate itself back into the whole. And so it has to give up its ideals of being separate from everything, and which has in some way given this aspect of ourselves the illusion or the disillusionment of being safe, which it certainly is not. And so what I've learned over the years, I've been coaching people now for over 18 years. I've been in my own work for 22 years. I have put well north of $500,000 into my education. I don't have fancy letters behind my name. And I would you would be hard fought to find somebody who's more committed to their personal evolution, personal growth, healing than I am. I'm sure there are people out there without a doubt, and I'm not trying to compare notes here. And simultaneously, who has also given work and given session to tens of thousands of people over 18 years. And so I've kind of seen people through just about everything you can imagine in life, from grief and loss to drug addiction, depression, anything that people go to clinicians for. So again, no PhDs, but a fuck ton of experience nonetheless. And it's something I continue to do. It's my life's work, my life's purpose, without a doubt. And just go down my newsfeed, you'll see pretty much every piece of content I produce. I rarely talk about personal things because personal things I leave for my personal life, and this is the stuff that really gives me juice. Otherwise, I would probably create zero content online at all. So I'm fresh off a trip to Colombia. I got back on Saturday, so just barely 3 days ago. Had about 16-hour trip back home. Got home pretty tired, and the next day found myself with 103-degree temperature, which is unusual. I don't think that was plant medicine related, but everything is related in some way. And I actually felt like I continued to be in some form of ceremony, even at home. And I haven't fully landed back in my system yet. So I still feel like some of the fields of the medicine around me, and it's still kind of working through me. And, at its core, the lessons are always different every year. And I think it's critically important to sit in multiple ceremonies at a time, ideally 3. I like to think of it as past, present, and future when you're doing ceremonies. And the medicine always knows how many ceremonies you're sitting with, how long you're going to be there for. This is intelligence. It's a consciousness in its own right, just like the whole plant world is. And it's really, really important that we start to redefine and realigning ourselves to our definitions of consciousness, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as unconscious on our planet. A rock has consciousness. We're very quickly discovering that data is being held in the minerals and soil of our planet. That is not a surprise to me whatsoever. And I imagine that eventually, instead of using data servers, silicon-based data servers, we will eventually find a way to store data inside the mineralization of our planet. And that would be a way to store it for millions of years. It's the reason why the ancients, Stonehenge, pyramids were built out of that material, because it was the most logical way to send a signal, not over 1,000-year period of time or 10,000-year period of time, but over millions of years period of time. And we are still shrouded and living in the mysteries of those things and discovering them. And if you haven't looked into ancient structures, I recommend that you do, because whatever the story is that you're being given about what was there, or that it was some tomb, is, in my opinion, complete and utter bullshit. And these are extremely advanced machines that we have yet to build anything like that on our planet since these times. So it's important to understand that ancient civilizations use different technology than we do today, and were probably way more spiritually enlightened than we are today, and that very likely some kind of cataclysm happened on our planet about 10,000 years ago. And there is something actually kind of cool about even that idea, because, and I'll get back to plant medicine ceremonies here in a second, is just to recognize the absolute vibrance of life, that life wants life, and that even after cataclysms, after complete annihilation of species on our planet, always, 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 and without fail, things come back with greater abundance and more variety. That is just the nature of life. It's the nature of evolution. Everything points towards the light. You can put cement over dirt, and you won't see the plants, but eventually the cement will crack and the plants will make their way through the crack and point at the light. And humans are exactly the same thing. It's like all of consciousness points towards the light. And so whether you're concerned about what's happening on the planet, whether you see exactly what's happening on the planet, why things like war and COVID and all these, upheavals that are happening on our planet, to me, that all seems extremely divine. I understand that the human collateral is very, very painful to look at. I'm Israeli born. My mother is Ukrainian born. I have a lot invested on great struggles that are happening on planet Earth right now. And yet I am committed deeply in the understanding that there's a big difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is what you do when a friend is down and is in pain, and you go down in the hole with them and you begin to experience a pain with them. And in that way, if you do that, all you do is you loop in the trauma together now. You don't help that person out. Compassion is the person who understands that if a person's down in the hole, you're the one that stands above it and you put their hand down and you help them lift back up to this higher vibration, so to speak, this area of stability. And so it's important to understand that all the work that we're doing, including shamanic work, including plant medicine work, is an opportunity for us to increase the stability in our system, to increase the amount of compassion that we elucidate within ourselves. And as we increase that elucidation of compassion within ourselves, our cup begins to get full of energy, and we begin to give to others from that full cup. And it's really, really important that we learn to do that. It's really important that we become extremely selfish about our healing. It's just something that we're not taught in society. We're taught to be selfless. But what people do when they're being selfless is they constantly give from an empty cup. And then all you guys who have your own coaching businesses, all you guys who want to help society, first of all, thank you and God bless you. And the second thing is you'll know is that you hit these walls where you completely fall apart because you've been working your ass off and you're under-resourced and you're tired, and then you kind of fall apart and you break apart, and then you look for a hand, you look for support, and of course it's not there. And so you think to yourself, why is it that I help everybody, but when I need help, nobody's around? And that's your trauma. That's a trauma-informed response that you're giving from. And so are you really giving, or are you trying to repair your trauma by giving other people to repair their trauma, thinking if I just generate enough safety in the world, I'll feel safe? And so it's not really giving, and empathy doesn't really work. And we have a lot of that going on in our society right now, and it's just disillusionment. And so I've learned over the years that it's important to recognize that this thing that we call reality, this thing that we're navigating every single day of our lives, is really just an organic hologram. It's this extremely advanced technology, extremely advanced mechanism, just like a video game or something like that. But this hologram immediately reflects our inner world in outer circumstances. And so if the frequency that we're holding, or the emotion that we're holding, and emotion can be broken down as energy and motion. So energy and motion is a frequency. And then so if we output that frequency of fear, of hate, of anger, of despondency, the organic hologram, or the organic mirror will then reflect circumstances back to you that match that frequency. And so when people talk about manifestation, it's kind of what they're talking about. What they're really saying is you got to change your frequency so that what you see in the mirror changes. But the reality is, for us, is all of us are used to looking in the mirror in a certain way. And the mirror that we're looking into is heavily distorted. And if you want to think of what I mean by distortion, it's like looking into, going into, one of those places where they have like a funhouse mirror type of situation, where all the mirrors are bent, and you're looking at yourself and you're trying to get the right view, but in one mirror you're too big, and the other mirror you're too small, and one mirror you're too wide. These are distortions of our view. And we need to start considering that the conditioning we're carrying around, or said otherwise, our trauma-informed view has distorted who we are in the mirror. And we are not seeing our true nature or a clear picture of who we are. And I'm certainly not the first person to say this. This has been talked about by all the great masters forever, but I'm hoping to articulate it perhaps in a way that you've never heard, or maybe in a more pragmatic way that gives you some access here. Because I don't think everybody should be doing plant medicine work at all. And I do think a lot of people should be doing plant medicine work who are ready for that level of intensity, because it's super intense, wildly rewarding, and it can be dreadfully frightening simultaneously. And there are minds, just like said in the Matrix, not every mind is ready to be disconnected that way. Some minds are so helplessly addicted to this reality, this conditioned reality that we've been born into, this narrative that we've been born into, that the fear of letting go of that is too much for that system. It's like the devil kind of situation. They'd rather be in chaotic waters, holding on to this baby little life preserver, knowing that, okay, fine, it's a total fucking chaos, frightening place to be. But at the very least, I know as long as I hold on to this little piece of foam rubber, I'm going to stay afloat, even though I'm gulping, mountains of water. I'm exhausted beyond belief. And over there is all this warm, steady water, but you don't know if you let go of this preserver, if that water is going to hold you, or if you're going to be able to survive in that water. And so you hold on to the storm. That's what this work is all about. This work is about facing the storm. That's really what all personal development work is about. That's what all healing work is really about. And it's incumbent on us to begin to understand something, because a certain evolution, I believe, is happening right now in consciousness that I have not seen happen in large variety, that is starting to become more pervasive. And I hear it in people's language. I hear people talking about trauma and nervous system regulation. These are very, very good topics for us to begin to talk about, but they're like the Western-minded topics. And so the first thing we want to recognize as we begin to look into areas like this, shamanic work and really deep healing work and somatic work, and there's so many good things out there that we could be doing. We just all need to find what aligns for us, principally what works with our energy, is to really understand that there's two ways to go about work, and it's actually important that we do both. And it's been a very long time since humanity has had an opportunity to both. And we're in very special times right now, where some of us who don't have to worry about survival day in and day out can pause and really consider our spiritual philosophy, because there hasn't been many times in history where humanity has been in this place where we have had things taken care of for us, to have the time to pause to do this kind of work. And I think it's paramount and really important for those of us that do, to understand that the primary principle of why we embodied on this planet is to help consciousness, our consciousness, the human being, come to its high evolved state, and to awaken ourselves. And that everything else you do in life, your relationships, your health, your businesses, are really not your primary focus, but ultimately a self-expression of your spirituality. And if you are blending and mixing up spirituality with religion, I ask that you see these as both in relationship, but somewhat separate as well. One can inform the other, certainly. But like everything else, when you are being taught religion without mysticism, or religion from a human mind, a conditioned mind who's not aware of the things that I'm talking about, inevitably they are going to see that work from their distortions. And we have plenty of examples of very pious people being very distorted. So hopefully this doesn't rub you too much the wrong way. That's okay. Like, human beings are imperfect. We're perfectly imperfect, right? And we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to see distortions. I haven't cleaned up all of my distortions, far from. I still get angry. I still get hostile. I still find myself saying things that impact myself or somebody else negatively. The difference is I have aware over these things, and I have very clear practices, simple ones, that help me learn through my trauma-informed responses and reactions, and then allow for me to cultivate more safety, well-being, deep connection in my life, more than I ever imagined possible. And a big part of that is these plant medicine ceremonies. However, I will say that doing plant medicine ceremonies without really good integration certainly can put some fuel on the fire for you and help the process along. But if you really want to make headway with doing work like this, it's really incumbent to find people that have a lot of experience, that know how to integrate these experiences. Otherwise, you can, put up your sail and find these big gusts of wind, but you're going to be a little bit directionless with it, and be a little bit lost on, what's ultimately the purpose here. Because I wouldn't want to put in that much effort and not get the results that I've been able to get. And I certainly was not like that in the beginning, because I saw it without knowing that I saw it this way until much later on. And, seeing things differently can only come from comparison, meaning like you contrast your experience. But at the beginning, life is suffering. Like, that's just what's kind of so for most people. And I was using it as a way to escape my suffering, which is probably an important part of our evolution, but certainly not what I do this work for today. Today, I see when we connect with the divine intelligence this way, the universe, God, call it whatever you want to, it's really important for us to find that energy, to recalibrate our system, and then actually learn how to bring that through into this third density. Because, if you're playing this game, like I'm playing this game, I imagine service to others is wildly important to you. Learning how to become more peaceful, more loving, more cohesive planet, and ultimately just coming to this really beautiful place with oneness, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. And all of that 100% with plant medicine work, shamanic work, you can taste that stuff 100%. And even if for nothing else, just to know that behind the veil, which is very thin, this love exists over there, and to feel it so directly will recalibrate your entire system. Because now you know, like I said, we're all pointed towards light. Now you know that that light exists, and your system will naturally calibrate and bring you and orient you to that light and start taking you through, sometimes uncomfortable, very challenging work of illuminating more light in your life. And so principally, the crazy part is all of us are wildly intelligent. And I don't mean that in the information that you know and can regurgitate type of intelligence. I mean that we are all sourced from intelligence itself, like the principal loving source of all things intelligence. And so that intelligence is working through you. And I can prove that to you very simply because that intelligence is the same intelligence that goes to work when you cut a finger or you break a bone or a woman gets pregnant. And just take a moment to consider those things. Certain trauma is happening in the body when you cut a finger or you break a bone. Even a woman who's giving labor to some degree is experiencing a level of trauma in her biological system. But as those processes are unfolding, there is no need on any of our parts for any sort of intervention. We don't have to sit there and tell our finger what to do. We don't have to direct a bone once it's been set what to do or how to repair itself. A pregnant woman doesn't have to think about where the liver cells go or the eyeball cells go. Like everything just does its thing in its own pace, in its own time, and it does it perfectly. And there's some intelligence, the way that a human being might define it, that is making all that happen. And I want you to realize that in all those moments, in all those experiences, the less input you put in, the less intervention, the better the process works. And so this points at a fundamental primary principle here, is that surrender is a must. It's not a recommendation, it's a requirement for our connection with divine intelligence. And for those people who are master meditators, and for those people who have taken the time to really sit and do the deep inner work, the action of no action, what you will ultimately and begin to discover is that the less I intervene and the less I meddle with the things in my life, the more things start working in my life very seamlessly and effortlessly. And in our teachings, I built an entire model of psychology and energy around what I call a survival model, and where I believe we're moving is what I call an evolutionary model. So it's really as simple as this. Either it's like living against the flow of energy or evolution, or living in alignment with the flow of energy and evolution. And there are really, really different qualities here. And ironically, it's like right now, it's like we're all living in the upside down. That's why nothing makes any fucking sense here. And it's why we don't feel like we're home. Because the nature of the world that we've created, and I think we've agreed to this. I don't think it's happened by accident. I think we've unconsciously agreed to everything. I don't think anything in this world can happen where we don't all agree at some fundamental level that we're going to go through this experience together, even wars, even disease, all of it. And principally, they're important experiences that allow for us to elucidate things within ourselves, because one of the key human attributes is procrastination. We like to lean on our laurels very quickly. We forget so fast what's happened. And so when this happens, there is like a zeal of energy in the field that needs to kickstart things, that needs to get us to pay attention. It's like you won't pay attention to what's happening in your body, but pain will make you pay attention. Terminal disease will make you pay attention. Grief, sadness, heartbreak will make you pay attention. And so these are tools that are used when a human being is not paying attention to their alignment, not being present, because they're not paying attention to their own evolutionary process. And for evolution to take place, it actually requires our participation, but not through action. It actually requires our participation through our awareness, through our presence. And again, this shouldn't be that big of a surprise. We've all been in situations where we don't feel seen, our needs aren't met. And then you meet somebody who really knows how to listen, who really knows how to be with you. And something very special happens when you have the experience of being seen, of being witnessed. It's its own kind of healing. So what happens when we learn to witness ourselves and attune to ourselves in the manner in which most of us want to be seen and attuned to? If we keep looking outside of ourselves and waiting to find an individual or a person or somebody who finally reaffirms everything you intuitively know about yourself, and you're waiting for this moment in time, it ain't coming. Maybe when you fall in love with somebody, if it's a really, really healthy relationship and they've done a fuck ton of work, but chances are if somebody's done an F ton of work, they're going to look for somebody who's also done an F ton of work because they want to be with a person who's come to that level of awareness. They want to elevate together. So it's unlikely that somebody who's in psychotic episodes and depression is suddenly going to find like this holy spirit of a human being and they're going to be together, right? We live a life that matches the frequency, vibration, psychology, energy, emotion, spirituality that we're in. That's just what's so. Poor people are living poor spiritual lives. Maybe not exclusively. There might be some exceptions to that rule, but on the whole and as a generality, it's most likely true, right? And don't take anything I'm saying here as truth. These are my own evaluations, okay? And you should not take anything here I'm saying as true because it's not important what I think is true. I learned a really, really long time ago as a teacher, you don't tell people what to see. You simply show them where to look. What they see when you point at it, that's up to them. Just like a child, you point, this is green, you point, that's a frog, you point, this is governance, this is that, this is that. When you allow for a human being to be self-determining, you're going to see an empowered human being. When you tell people what to see, you're no longer interested in cultivating human beings, you're interested in cultivating machines. And that's what our school systems have done well. That's what the medical community unfortunately does. We have been primed to kowtow and bow down to authority since the moment that we got here. And this was reaffirmed in the home for many, many generations. It was all about breaking the will of the child. And you see this change happening now, which to the former generation looks like the children are lazy or inept or too sensitive in some way. But I mean, what the fuck did you want? Like, you want a more peaceful world? Guess what? You need more sensitive children. And you need parents who are allowing children to discover who they are, not telling them who they are or what's expected of them. And I'm a big proponent of cultivating children, not raising children. We raise cattle, we don't cultivate, we don't raise children. And so it's really, really, important for all of us to be approaching our spirituality, I think as somebody's saying here, without any sort of agenda. And it's one of the things I teach from going from survival to an evolutionary model is that living an agendaless life that allows for the proliferation of experiences, to have as many experiences as you possibly can, is your quickest route to evolving yourself. It's not about having the experience that you want. It's not about healing the area of life that you want. It's not about, I got to deal with this mom thing, or I got to deal with this money situation, or whatever it is. That's fine if you have that desire. And I commend you for even looking in that way. And for that, you deserve credit. You genuinely do. And I've never seen somebody hyper focus on an area of life and really do much with it, because that is not leaning on this intelligence that I'm talking about here. Divine intelligence is not concerned with what your conditioned mind wants to do or the timing that's involved there. Spirituality has its own cadence. It works through patience and grace. It has a timing. And the more that we can allow ourselves to align ourselves to that timing, the easier things get for us. Because your biggest opportunity for healing is always what's going on in your life right now. And I don't mean like right now, like, oh, right now money is difficult. I mean like in this exact moment. In this exact moment, the things that you're thinking about, the emotions that you're having, and most importantly, the sensations that are in your body are the closest thing you have to the true experience that you're having as a human being. Because we all start at the level of subtle sensation in our body that turns into what we deterministically determine as an emotion. And then we have thoughts about that emotion. And by the time you get to the thought about the emotion, that's just the program running that's trying to create safety in your life. And it's been doing the same thing since you were a little boy or a little girl. Always with the same determination factor of trying to create safety. But I want you to recognize that aspect of you, this program that's running, is not doing a good job. You actually don't feel safer. Maybe you have the illusion of safety for a period of time, but that's like having anxiety and smoking a cigarette and then saying the cigarette is making me less anxious. Maybe for a moment in time, but more likely You are misinterpreting something in that moment about what the cigarette is doing, because as you take that first puff, you're also taking a deep breath. The deep breath actually relaxes the nervous system. And that probably has more to do with relaxing the system than having the cigarette. Because I smoked for many years, and I know that after the first puff, you do relax, and then you don't really want the rest of the cigarette, but you smoke it anyway because it's become ritualistic. And so again, we make all these misinformed connections about what's actually going on in our lives. And healing, just like I mentioned before, really begins at the level of presence and connection. And it begins with the presence and connection with yourself, and then even more importantly, getting presence and connection from other people. And this is primarily something that we need to understand, that healing cannot be done on your own. You can't do it. You can't do it through reading books. You can't do it simply by meditating all day long. I've done that shit for 20 years. It doesn't work. Because we really need to look at what works fundamentally in the child-parent relationship. And simply put, what every child needs, and it's not a want, it's a requirement, is connection from the caregiver in an attuned way. That's it. That's pretty much the primary need, necessity for every single person on planet Earth. When we're seen in connection and deep connection and we're presenced, healing ensues. The intelligence of our body takes over and will repair and heal everything. So if your body already had the information that it needed to heal itself, it would do that immediately. And if something is not healing, something is not moving, I guarantee you, it's because you are under-resourced in your system. And that energetically, you do not have the psychological, emotional, or energetic template of how to move beyond that thing. You're stuck somewhere. And so, like I said, emotions is really just energy that's not in motion anymore, right? I'm sorry. When you have like trauma, it's an emotion that's stuck. So this energy that should be moving is not flowing through the system, and it actually creates a bind. It's like a party gets frozen in time, and it creates a tension in the body. And this tension we can train ourselves to become aware of. It's subtle energy inside the body. And the moment that tension is there, the mind has to speak. It has to run this program. And the program is your illusion of safety. It's the bend in the mirror that was formed a very, very long time ago underneath the surface of your consciousness. And all of our lives, the quality of them are truly predicated on what our unconscious mind is doing. Now, here's the cool part. There's like the unconscious part that science points to, and then there's the unconscious part, like the soul, like your intelligent self, the one that has all the information through space and time, the one that is not bound by space and time. And what I've come to recognize through these ceremonies is that this part of us, like any part of us within us, is like a child waiting for connection. And the child will simply not reveal itself fully until that connection is made. I'm sure many of you guys have read the book Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And in that book, he coins a term called the seat of awareness. The seat of awareness. And I've read that book like a gazillion years ago, like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't remember when the first time was, but a long time ago. And I was very steeped in personal development work at that time, learned a ton about language and its effect on human beings. My total mind ninja, how to change paradigms, how to empower yourself, manifest like a motherfucker, preeminently powerful and professional at that myself. But what I want to point here is that there's two paths to enlightening ourselves. And the path I just pointed to is what we call the growing up path. And the path that the shamanic work, energetic work, healing work points to is not the path of growing up work. It's the path of waking up work. So we have growing up and waking up. And these are two completely different fields of study and initiation. And most of the industry is wildly supposing that the path of personal development or the mindset work or growing up work is where all this transformation happens. And that's where just some of the transformation happens. In fact, in my accounts, a smaller amount of the transformation happens. If you want to see and unleash transformation in ways that are literally incomprehensible to your mind, then the path of waking up is so important. Now, we have had awakened masters on this planet, pious people, so to speak, very gifted healers, things of that nature. And then we see them do these incredibly out of integrity things. And these two things that I just mentioned should elucidate as to why that happens. Because when you have an awakened soul, but they haven't done the growing up work, they don't have integrity, they don't have responsibility, and they are doing things that seem wildly disingenuous and out of integrity for a person who is so awakened. And then if you have just the personal development people who have the integrity, the responsibility piece, the paradigm shifts, but have no awakened work, then they have no knowledge of energy. or consciousness at all. And so they're limited wildly with their capacity, and they work really hard, but they often feel like they're spinning in place, not really getting anywhere, wondering why that is, because they become a highly aware human being, but they haven't learned anything about internal attunement. And this is what happened to me. 15 years of personal development. And what I felt in my system is this unbelievable growing frustration, because at that point in my life, I had put already well over $500,000 into my work, endlessly practiced for 15 years, no breaks, just all the way through. This is my life's purpose, my life's work, passion of mine. So it's never been effortful for me, but like, turning myself inside out all the time. And then this growing frustration of this underlying feeling that even though I've become this really aware human being, the fear that I've lived with since I was a little boy has not really changed one iota. Speaking of little boy, as you walked in. And that hadn't changed really like one iota. And so that had always left me with this question of what does it take? Because Michael Singer talked about the seat of awareness. And I had always assumed if I had just gained enough insight, if I had just gained enough wisdom, that I would somehow, really unbeknownst to me how, find myself located in the seat. And try as I might, that never happened. And I never really got closer to it. And I wasn't really ever sure what I was looking for. And then I began to do more shamanic work. And then I started working with teachers who began to work with me and show me things that were far beyond the capacity of my mind to understand. They were connecting to direct experiences I had, and not speaking, but having me pointing at and clearly knowing deep experiences within me that I knew were hidden away and I didn't even know how to articulate properly, but that they did. So this created a whole new avenue of this question, and that something else was at play that I didn't fully understand. And so it led me to a great deal of teachers and mystery schools and schools of somatic and energetic healing, which began to reveal something to me, this other path that I'm talking about. And the crazy part was recognizing that the seat of awareness that Michael Singer talked about, and I am unclear why he leaves this out in the book. I'm unclear why all the teachers have left this out of the book. They make it seem like it is impossible to awaken yourself. They make it seem like it is so effortful. And I've learned it takes all of 5 minutes. And I know that sounds fucking insane, but it is a matter of pointing at a way to reorient the way that the mind is perceiving. And I don't mean perceptions like paradigm changes. I mean, literally, it's simply moving awareness away from the aspect of mind that creates conditioning. It is literally just like, it's like relocating it. Okay. It's like moving this phone from here to here. It's as simple as that. And we teach this at our work. You're not going to master it like this, but I can point at it immediately and have you feel your divine intelligence immediately. And well, all that simply means is you can either perceive life from your conditioning, or you can perceive life from your divine intelligence, from an unconditioned mind. So maybe you've heard these terms, maybe you haven't, but your conditioning is localized in a certain area. It's in a certain focal point of the mind. And when you bring your awareness to that area, which is where everybody's living, like a default state from, we live from our conditioning. We react from our conditioning. It's why when you get, when somebody cuts you off on the highway, you have that response, and then immediately begin to act like the person that you just said you don't like. Notice how that happens. It's kind of this funny thing. The mirror at play. Somebody cuts you off, you get upset, then you find yourself driving like a maniac behind the person who just cut you off, and now you're cutting off other people, doing the very same thing that you abhor. This happens all the time. We try to remove from society the things that we haven't dealt with within ourselves. If you can't deal with your anger, you don't like being angry, you'll see angry people in society, you'll want to murder them. And this is where violence comes from. This is where disconnection comes from. This is where misunderstanding comes from. This is where all this stuff comes from. That's why, take an example of a very pious Catholic man or woman who hates homosexuals for some reason or another. It's like, it's one thing to not like them. It's another thing to like go on a tirade and, create your entire life around healing them or getting rid of them or whatever it is. And then you often find out that they are as gay as it comes. Well, when you grow up in a culture that tells you that you're an abomination for being gay, and then you find out that you're gay and you turn away from that your entire life, then the only way that pragmatically that mind will think that they can create safety in this world is by getting rid of all homosexuals. And they will not feel safe until all of homosexuality is gone. But what's the problem? Is it homosexuality is a problem, or is it that they themselves are uncomfortable with that aspect of themselves? And this is true for all of us in so many different areas of life. What you don't like out there is what you don't like in here. It's what you haven't come to peace with. You haven't met it with compassion yet. And so just to kind of come back to, pragmatic things that this work does and what healing work does is it naturally increases compassion within the self. Again, I always say to our students, I said, be selfish about your healing. It's the most selfless thing you can do. Because the more you cultivate well-being, the more you increase and cultivate compassion, the more you feel cultivate safe in your bonds and your relationships. And this stuff is, by the way, symptoms of doing this kind of work. You don't even have to focus on it. It will just happen to you the moment you have that, just in the same way that the person who believes they're abomination for being gay, if you're just compassionate with the self, naturally, that compassion comes out of you. And it's the way that you start treating everybody else around you. So notice how the world right now is allocating its energy as if you need to be externally focused, and the media is pulling you external, and economic problems are turning you external, and drug addictions, they turn you externally, constantly looking for a solution outside of yourself. There's something out there. There's a doctor out there. There's a pill out there. There's the right candidate out there. It's all bullshit. It's nonsense. Booby prize at best. You guys think that we're going to find the perfect candidate? I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, RFK, whatever you think is the right person for the job. And maybe there is a more right person for the job that would be more in alignment for what you want, but for the other 50% is not. I mean, you think there's a candidate that because they put him in office, like we're going to have world peace, or the hunger won't be a problem anymore, or the medicine will be widely available to everybody? I mean, these industries have no concern. These systems have no concern with your healing at all, or attuning to you, or having you live a peaceful life. It's wild to me that people go to these systems time and time again that have broken their hearts, that have proven themselves false, that have proven themselves without any sort of integrity. And you think the right person that's going to work inside of that system is ever going to provide any sort of solution for us? Talk about fucking psychosis. Talk about fucking schizophrenia. How much energy and time and mindfulness and emotion do most people put into these things? Hang in their hat, believing that it's going to solve all the problems. Never. It doesn't change anything. If you've lived as long as I have, I've been around for 41 years. Please notice the pattern. The only place that you can go for your salvation is inside. And when you go inside, you got to recognize a truth that maybe has been taken away from you, is you require no mediation between you and your maker, however it is that you define that or have that experience. No mediation is needed between you and the divine. It is a direct connection. It's instant, and it's always there and available. And this aspect, divine, God, universe, call it whatever you want, waits idly by, like the most patient mother or father, and stays dormant until you give it presence and make a connection with it. And it kind of lives in this unconscious part of ourselves. And when that connection is made, it will begin to stream its intelligence to you. And you will begin to have, quote, channeled experiences, whether it's through your intuition or your felt sense or visions or words or systems or something, however your system orients and feels its way through the world, or through auditory experiences, will come to you. And every system works different. We're all like part of the same body with different jobs to do. My system runs and charge really different than probably your system. It experiences the world. I'm a very kinesthetic person. I see through my felt sense. My intuition works through my felt sense. I don't have grand visions, but I know people who it's like a fucking kaleidoscope up there, and that's how they see the world. Doesn't make my way right and their way wrong. We're all walking the same journey, the same path, with kind of different sensory equipment. And it's great that it works that way. Thank God it works that way, that we all have these different little tools. That's what makes us special. We've been given a certain way where this tool is going to be used a little bit different than that tool. And it's so important that we recognize our beauty, that we recognize our intelligence, that we recognize the power of surrender, that we recognize that intelligence, like I said, does not work until you surrender. I mean, Jesus, take the wheel kind of situation. It really is like that. And I get it, because giving away, quote, control is fucking terrifying. And either we learn to deal with that terror and let it stream through our system until we went through it so much that we come out the other end, like in Shawshank Redemption, crawling through a mile of fucking mud and shit until we come out the other end clean. That's exactly how it works. There's no going around. There's no shortcut. There's no cheat code. There's no biohack. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. You cannot skip taking the next step. You cannot skip that challenge. I see student after student with challenges. I'm like, I get it. I've been there. I have gone through that. The way it goes in is the way it comes out. It is literally physics. Equal and opposite force. And like, healing doesn't happen in 2 days. Doesn't even happen in a month. Doesn't even happen in years. This is a lifetime focus. It's just like having a six-pack or being healthy, which, I've, again, conditioned myself to be a person who understands how to do that. I had 6 years of my life, and making a small excuse here after, before having kids, I'm heading back in that direction now. Like, I know what it's like to have 8 to 10% body fat and have a chiseled physique. And I'm telling you right now, it's not a fucking mystery. And there's $1 billion industry trying to convince you that it's something difficult to do. You eat right, you exercise, boom, six-pack. It's a guarantee. There's only so many calories you can put in, some effort that the body needs to put out. You got to use some of that energy, build muscle. Like, it's a guarantee. But if you're eating chocolate cake 5 times a week, I can guarantee you it's not going to happen. If you're drinking all the time, I can guarantee you it's not going to happen. If you're eating non-organic food and your body has to process chemicals all the time, I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get sick. Body's not built for that. And so in the same token, with your mindset, your energy, your psychology, your healing, there's a lifestyle there. And if you don't pursue that lifestyle and you don't understand the principles and the precepts for that lifestyle, you ain't got a shot. You can go do all the fucking weekend retreats that you want and feel really good from Monday to Wednesday, but Thursday's going to roll around and you're going to meet yourself right as you were, and you're going to wonder, fuck, there's another course that didn't work. There's another book that didn't make a difference. That's not the point. Again, intelligence, insights, knowledge, they're great for the ego. Make you sound great at dinner parties and all that kind of stuff, but it's not what gets the job done. There's only one way to transform yourself, and it's the way that has worked principally for you since the moment you were born, and that is a direct experience. That's it. If you haven't felt it deep inside, you ain't got it yet. That's not wisdom. That's just more data, more insight, more information. And sometimes insights are great for opening a door for an experience, for saying yes to something you wouldn't have said yes before. And in 22 years, I've never transformed anything in my life by simply having an insight. It had to be a direct experience every single time. And today, I'll give you a hack, is I don't do healing work on my own, ever, never, nothing. I don't do anything without people around me now. Support is very rapidly becoming the principal focus of my life. And I am literally in my blood the exact opposite of that. I am, an immigrant child to a Ukrainian mother, a Latvian father who left USSR in the worst of its times, who moved to Israel, lived there for 13 years, had 2 children, moved to the States with nothing, no money, the typical US of A story, and built a life here from nothing, with no money and just pretty much the clothes on our backs. And so when you live in that lifestyle, you become a hyper independent human being. My company, everything I've ever done in business was built through that psychology and through that energy. And I could tell you, I've struggled like a motherfucker, even though I've made millions of dollars in that period of time, lost it, almost gotten broke, like a million things, like just sabotage, because that's what my system knows how to do, is work really fucking hard. And so anything that would take away working really fucking hard is actually a threat to my system. So why would I ever keep the wealth? And we chase and we chase and we chase and we chase. And I've had to do a ton of work to shift from somebody who's really fiery and angry and determined and did everything through willpower, to becoming somebody who is honestly becoming rather soft. I feel like I have been wielding a sword of fire in my hand for I don't even know how many lifetimes, killing and being killed. I've had to deal with all these things in plant medicine ceremonies, seeing past lives, experiencing past lives, watching myself kill people, watching myself be killed, more times than I care to share here, honestly. And it has been like extremely rigorous to put this fucking hand down and put the sword down and stop fighting and realize it was never about that in the first place. How much disillusionment have I been living under? And as I get softer, I used to think that I would feel more fear because I'm no longer wearing my armor and my defense, and it's quite the opposite. I feel safer than ever. I feel trusting. I know where my values are. I know how I support people. I can feel my gifts coming online. I begin to channel the divine. I mean, these are, dare I say, kind of cool things. So I am personally a proponent for this work, for the right person. And I think attuning to ourselves, attuning to our needs, the ability to self-reference, what do I want? What are my needs? Like I mentioned, getting support. These are things that I knew nothing about just a few years ago. Did everything on my own. So just put it all on my back. I'll cut off my arm. It's okay, whatever. Like I'll just carry it to the finish line, whatever I thought that meant. And today I'm like, I ain't doing none of that. I do things with the support of people. I do things with the support of my angels, my guides, people around me. Like I will not face, I am determined to no longer face life on my own. And again, this shouldn't be that crazy of an idea, but we have created a Western world where we move away from family and we have our kids and we have our own house and we do everything independently. And I'm telling you, we're fucking crazy. We're in psychosis that we're doing that. It is not the way that we are organized, not the way this being is organized. We're social creatures, biologically, spiritually. Living in a village is how you take all the pressure off yourself, is how you get the support that you need, is how you let yourself fall apart when you need to fall apart, is how you get put back together with the help of the community. And there are plenty of tribes all over Africa and in South America and in the deep recesses of North America that still understand these principles and still live with these values. And I guarantee you their way of life is so much more easeful and they're so much more happy, even though we have so much more shit that we don't need. But we're living so disconnected today while we have all this technology to connect ourselves, because it's not technology that's doing the disconnection. It's our consciousness. We literally are not being trained how to connect. Connection is not just something that happens, right? It's like I said, it's a way that you hold your awareness that opens it up so that you're not in defense while you're with other people. Because you can be around 100 people, and I was one of these people, like the wallflower. You have 20 friends around you, 30 friends around you, and feel completely isolated and lonely. Do not tell me it's a function of having people around you. That's just a part of it. Physical presence, sure, we all need it. Don't get me wrong. But it's when you're oriented to fear, when you're oriented to defense, when you're oriented to the struggle, when you're oriented to, I don't know how to get my needs met. I don't even know I have needs. And certainly people don't support me. You're telling me that you're feeling deep connection, even when people are around you? Of course not. And so we get to discover for ourselves, what does it mean to be aware? What does it mean to be in presence? And until we find that out within ourselves, it's extremely hard to get it out here. And out here, like I said, is going to be a reflection of in here. It's always a perfect reflection of in here. Something's not working in your reality. I guarantee you, I can help you find what's going on inside that's creating that reality. And I really understood something in the jungle this last time Again, we are a evolution of plants. Again, this shouldn't be much of a surprise. Like, think about how many substances derived from plants interact with human consciousness and completely alter its perspective in so many different ways. It's wild how plants work with us. It's wild, the medicinal property of plants. There is room for allopathic medicine in the most extreme circumstances, but the reliance today on allopathic on medicine is fucking killing you, and it's killing me, and it's killing us. You cannot have petroleum-based products in and around you and think that you're doing something good for yourself. You can't put gasoline and fuel on your skin or down your gullet hole and expect good results. We made it millions of years without doing that. How do you think we got here? And it is time to come back to the roots of our planet. It's time to come back to the plant world. It's time to reform our relationship in a healthy way with our earth and our cosmology, and trust me, the endless consciousness that exists out there. You don't think there have been awakened masters around for billions of years? You don't think there's other species awakened supporting all this? You haven't investigated very deeply. You haven't sat in meditation and met these consciousnesses that exist all around us, here to support us. It's like a mailbox with presents in it all the time for you, but humanity just doesn't know where the mailbox is yet. We're looking. I've been looking for a long time. I found a few. They're pretty cool. I highly recommend continuing to pursue that and having some curiosity around beyond the world, beyond the narrative that's being shared here. Again, don't take my word for it. So I just want to kind of leave you with a few things. Oh yeah, and what I wanted to mention is that, like, we've gotten stuck in this manifestation cycle. It's really not about manifesting. It's really about allowing. Notice that nature is peaceful. You don't need to manifest peace. It's an abundance. You need to allow peace. Notice that money is an abundance. Some people have it, some people don't. Those of us that don't have it, we don't allow it. Health, we don't allow it. And that's a good news, bad news, because if you have some kind of pain in your body, there's a part of you, I'm not saying all of you, a part of you that's holding on to that pain. It's unwilling to surrender to it or let go. It's identified and merged with it in some particular way. And there's a story that you're telling yourself. Whether you're the victim or the hero in that story, it's kind of irrelevant. You're just kind of going with it. And so if the knee hurts, for example, it might be difficult for you to reveal that to yourself, but you are at some level generating that pain. It's a spiritual calamity. It's not a physical calamity. I can't even tell you. I mean, just a quick story. And we have a client that's been with us for the last year and a half, I think just a year. And this woman came in with severe scoliosis. Now, I'm not saying I did this, and I'm not saying that I would even know how to do it again. But over the last year, her scoliosis repaired itself. Okay? She's been going to doctors for a long time. I have the x-rays. They don't understand how it happened. Now, I'd like to say that I don't understand how it happened, but a part of me does understand how it happens. Because what I know is that our mind and our psychology and the emotions that we feel are like, put us in a certain configuration. That configuration will shape the body. And when the body's in a lot of pain, it closes and defends itself. Like, it's when you're like in a negative emotional state, the tendency is for the shoulders to roll forward and the heart to push back and for the body to close. What's the body doing? The body is going into defended position. Like when you go on the ground and someone's about to kick you, you're going to collapse and you're going to defend. This is exactly what happens at the level of emotion. The body defends. It collapses and it gets tight. And I mentioned this before, like we have these collapses in our body all over the place. And when you begin to track them, it's subtle energy. It's like constraints or collapses in our system that hold tight. Now, energy can't move through tightness. What needs to happen? The system needs to relax and open like a flower. Then energy can flow again. And what happens is the health comes back when energy is flowing in the body. I imagine most diseases we will eventually find out are simply a matter of energy not flowing in the body. This is why all sorts of sound therapies work, because they begin to reintroduce a certain frequency or vibration into the body. Shake, shake, shake. Same thing with breath work, other things that shake the body, qigong, very, very good. All sorts of martial arts, a lot of movement in the body, very, very good, right? Adding pliability, flexibility back to the body. This is real strength. Strength is a bamboo tree. Very, very strong, but very flexible. Strength is not being like carved like wood. If you want to get injured, be really hard and resilient like that. Injuries all the time. You probably won't live very long because energy, you're not getting chi moving through the body. This is very, very important. If you want to live a long life, it's not just about muscle mass. I have plenty of that myself. It really is about pliability and flexibility. And you want to apply that to every area of your life. Emotional flexibility, emotional resiliency, energetic flexibility, energetic resiliency. And the things that we teach is like energetic hygiene. This work, ayahuasca, like some people get so much from it. It's a big flush of energy, energetic hygiene. Like how many of you guys would go, a week without taking a shower, or a month, or a few decades? Well, that's what's happening on the inside. Like that's when disease shows up out of nowhere. It's not clean. It's like living in sewage all the time. That's why, the diseases of the last few centuries, we had no sanitation. Of course, diseases showed up everywhere. The moment you get sanitation, you get a lot less disease. You get some hygiene. So it's the same thing on the inside. No sanitation on the inside, you're going to get disease. Just kind of par of the course. Or you're, probabilistically more likely to get disease. We could all get disease at some level. So again, what's the focus here? Why would somebody do this? Well, you want to learn about the art of surrender. You want to make that connection again with nature, with your divine intelligence. Check, check. You want to have extremely deep healing experiences far beyond what the mind can contemplate. Go into the multidimensional nature of healing, of spirit, of soul. Check, check, check. Like wild stuff. I mean, really, like truly, I bring people down there. There's a guy here right now. I don't want to mention his name because I like privacy. But day 2 ends and he just looks at me. He's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I know. Because when the veil's been removed, it's all you're left with. It's just, it's awe beyond awe. You didn't even imagine it's that grand. You didn't imagine that there's that much light. There's that much love, that much everything. It's infinite nature of things. We have no words for this stuff. It shocks you to your core every time. I've never got accustomed to it. It's so far beyond my mind's imagination capacity that I've even stopped trying to imagine it. But what I know is that the more I've done work, not just ayahuasca and plant medicine work, but the more I've just done this kind of work, energy healing, things of this nature, I can see that the gap between when I drink medicine and when I don't is getting smaller. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting. And what that tells me is that my body is slowly being prepared, becoming more resilient, is able to hold more energy, flow more energy, circulate more energy, more compassion, more well-being, more safe bonding. And as that happens in my life, I am slowly awakening and being granted the ability to peek behind the curtain, even when I'm not in these experiences. And, I think it's Johan, I believe is the way you pronounce your name, is asking, how does one surrender? Well, here's the deal. And that's a great question. We cannot learn that through instruction and through an insight. Like I can't give you a 3-step process to surrender. It's very simple. You either are or you're not surrendered. And the chances are if you're asking how to surrender, you've never tasted what it's like to surrender yet. Surrender is literally letting yourself go and be with the experience exactly as the experience is without trying to change anything about it. So if you're in a certain emotional state or a mental state and you're like, okay, I want out of this, I'm going to go do that coaching program to get out of this experience. If you came to me, the first thing I would tell you is don't try to change the experience. Tell me about that experience. Breathe with that experience. Let me know, like, is your mind talking? Great. Watch the mind. Include the mind. Do you feel that tightness in your let me just track you a little bit. For you, it's in the back left part of your heart. There's a little bit of tightening there. Can you feel that? Yes? Great. Witness that part of your heart that's in tension. Witness the lower belly that's a little tension coming in there right now. Witness the energy that's starting to flow up through the center channel. This kind of like, like maybe like a little bit unsure, or maybe I pointed at something that's now moving some energy in the system. Like, witness that. People come to me and they go, well, I've been trying to meditate for years. My mind's not quiet. I'm like, whoever told you that meditation's about quieting your mind? It's not. Meditation has nothing to do with quieting your mind. It's the reason people don't meditate is because they get horrible instructions like that. There's nothing to do with that. Meditation is about witnessing yourself as you are in this present moment. That's it. If in this present moment you don't have a quiet mind, then meditate with an unquiet mind. Witness the fact that the mind's not quiet. If you want a quiet mind, there's one way to get there. You can, it's end your life or have your life be ended. That's the way out. Like, if you want to know, you don't want to have an ego, don't be a human being. As long as you're a human being, I don't care what level of enlightenment you're at. The ego is there. There was a book a few years ago that came out and said, "Ego is the enemy." It was super popular. I was like, this is the dumbest book I've ever read in my entire life. The title makes it dumb. The title tells me the person who wrote this is a complete disillusionment. They don't understand how these mechanisms work. Healing is not a matter of getting rid of anything. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm angry, I need to get my anger under control, or I'm not making money, I need to get that shit handled. It doesn't work that way. Whatever you've experienced about what a human being is, and even the things you haven't yet experienced about being a human being, is what a human being is. The parts of ourselves that we get stuck in are the ones that have disassociated from the system. And those parts of us feel like they're on their own on an island. And just like a child who has lost connection from a parent and is being misattuned to, the child is completely dysregulated all the time. It's very scared. And so these parts of us live in this kind of dysregulated, scared state. And what they're looking for is an attuned connection. And when that attuned connection comes, what happens is they're like, oh my God, there's the caregiver. And it's not about getting rid of them. It's about reintegrating them back into the whole. It's about finding deep compassion for that aspect of yourself at every level that you can. And when that happens, it stops becoming a concern in your life. And so surrender is not something that we do. It's something that we choose. In this moment, I'm going to be with whatever arises, and recognize that you, in reality, has a phenomenology, and that phenomenology is that it's an emergent phenomenon. Life just emerges. Just like clouds in the sky arrive, or thoughts in your mind seem to bloom out of nowhere. It's emerging from a field of consciousness, of infinite probability and possibility. And then it goes back into that field. Notice how you can't track it. It's this isness that's there all the time. So real confidence, real surrender is our capacity to be with what's arising in that reality phenomenology manifestation as it arrives without trying to change it. That's where God is. You want to experience your true nature, witness what's arising as it's arising. Stop trying to change it. Stop thinking that your mind knows better than the intelligence of all things. It doesn't. You can operate from a small mind, or you can operate from grand mind. Grand mind is your divine mind, the thing that has all information of all time and space, and that which is even beyond space and time. It's the one intelligence. It's the oneness that people talk about. That they think it's a concept, that we all have this like kumbaya experience. It's not that. It's the drop in the ocean that also recognizes it is the ocean. We connect through the field. We don't connect through our mind. We connect through awareness and consciousness, but not through what we call mind. That's a very different thing. Mind is the conditioning. Consciousness and awareness is a whole other ballgame. And so we can either witness our lives through our mind and through our five senses, or we can learn to cultivate awareness and consciousness. And as we do that, awareness begins to sit in front of mind. We witness life as it is, and then we allow for the human experience to roll through. And then we just witness the human like you're witnessing a pet or an animal. You're like, oh my God, look at it. It's having an experience. Sometimes that experience is scary. Sometimes that experience is loving. But in the times that I've been able to do this, what I'm witnessing is that this stability is coming online, and that instead of trying to derive pleasure from every moment of life, The witnessing is the pleasure. Being in the witness, the seat of awareness, as Michael Singer calls it, being in that seat has an inherent built-in pleasure because you're sitting in the seat of compassion. It's like a loving parent who's watching a child stumble and fall. And it doesn't matter what the child does. The parent's like, oh my God, that's incredible. I love you. I have so much compassion for you. And that compassion is unshakable, unconditional. That's what it is. Now you tell me, if you witnessing yourself in your life, if your compassion for yourself is unshakable, unconditional. If it's not, you got fucking work to do. We all got fucking work to do. And it could be sometimes that there's aspects where you can be that way and the parts where you can't. There's still parts of me that I still find, dare I say, reprehensible. But every year, more compassion, more love, more compassion, more love, deeper compassion, deeper love. You want to accelerate, if there is such a thing, your transformation, turn up the compassion on yourself. You'll see you turn up the compassion then on the human race. Even when people are doing violence, love. Because you see they're not doing that out of some discord. They're doing that out of being heavily traumatized. It's a traumatic response to do violence to somebody. They're not at fault. They're not broken. They weren't born fucked up. We're all born the same pristine, beautiful babies who deserve love, not because of who we are, what we've done, but because we simply embodied. That's the role of a parent, is to love the child, not because of who they are, what they've done, is to cultivate and nurture the relationship because they are. Let that child know that they deserve love and compassion simply for being. Then you learn that being is your essence, not what you've done is your essence. And this doing shit that we've done to ourselves is creating so much confusion for every child and then adult on our planet, because we think in order to get that connection, we have to do something. We have to find a mediator. We have to appease God. We have to do. It has nothing to do with being. And surrender is an act of being as you are. That's what surrender is. It takes a great deal of practice. It sounds so simple, and it is. But sometimes it's really hard to make things simple. Sometimes you got to work really, really hard to make things easy. And so the things that are hard for you today will become automatic tomorrow. But, practice does not make perfect. Just say that. You can be taught the wrong thing and practice it for decades and yield you all bad results. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And there's no such thing as perfect practice. So nothing makes perfect. There's just practice. And some practices are really work. Like, when we work with people, we tell you your results are guaranteed. I don't know what timeline they're going to work in, but I know you follow this path. I guarantee you're going to be a more compassionate human being. You're going to begin experiencing well-being potentially for the first time in your life. Your relationships and bonds are going to become safe. And I just want you to imagine that if what I'm saying is true about the organic hologram, and if your foundation is fear and scarcity and worry, and the hologram is going to just reflect that back to you, what happens when the foundation of who you are is compassion, well-being, and safety? Safety of the self, safety in bonds. What if that is literally the foundation from which you experience life from? Do you not think that the organic hologram is going to start giving you experiences that mimic more compassion, more safety, more well-being, more love? It just does. You want stability in your life? Generate stability within. It's as simple as that. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. If you have any personal questions for me about anything that I talked about here, this has just been stream of consciousness. I don't think I've stopped talking in like an hour and 20 minutes. You can just email me, guy@satoriprime.com, whether you're interested in shamanic work or you actually want to look at some of the work that we do. You're also welcome to just go to Satori, Satori, prime.com. You can see the logo there. So just one word, satoriprime.com. We have courses that you can sign up for on your own, like digital courses. It's a great place to get started. I recommend the Nervous System Reset Protocol as a good place to start. If you want to do more mindset work, we have Mindset Mastery Immersion, but I would tell you nervous system stuff is life-changing. Mindset Mastery is also amazing if you're like really at the starting blocks. And then we have programs that you can't sign up for unless you have a conversation with somebody for our team. So, pick your direction. Totally fine if I'm not your flavor, and we all have teachers that we align with or don't. So no attachment on my part. I'm just here to share some perspective and goodwill. I hope you enjoyed this conversation today.